What's up, guys? It's your boy Darkskin, and today we're going to be talking about the different types of statuses and effects that are in the game. Now, I planned on making a video on this already, but a couple of days ago, the official DKO Discord actually dropped all the information on all of these things, so it's going to help me out a ton for you guys. Now, I'm not just going to be reading over these. I'm going to be reading over them and then showing you guys exactly what it means, so you guys can get a perfect understanding of how everything works. So starting out, we're going to be going on with attack distance. Attack distance is how far an attack will hit from. So Amaterasu has a short range, but as you can see, that is the attack distance on her sword. So anywhere in that range is where the attack is going to come from. That is her attack distance. Now, if we're talking about the warp distance is not your sword, but your body. How far my body moves is the warp distance. So that's basically how far the character or non-hitbox moves. The next thing we're going to be talking about is clash. If two attacks of the same type connect within a small window, they cancel out and both players are pushed back. Now, it's not really easy to replicate this because it's just me, but it's pretty simple to understand, pretty easy to understand. If I use a light attack and they use a light attack and we hit each other, it will clash. If we both use the same type of move, it'll clash if it hits at the same time. Now, obviously, if I hit them first, it will not clash. I'll just win that out. And also moving on to that, counter is if, so there's layers to moves. So ability beats heavy and light, heavy beats light. So if the enemy uses a light attack and I use a heavy attack at the same time and they clash, mine will win out and it'll be a counter. Same as if I use a heavy attack and someone uses an ability and they hit at the same time, the ability will win out. Moving on to crit. Crit is a sweet spot that some abilities have that basically give a bonus effect. The bonus effect being more knockback or extra damage. Now, not every single character has a crit ability, but there are a couple of characters that do. One of those characters is actually Amaterasu. If you guys see, whenever she dashes, she just dashes. That's it. But if she hits her dash, it will crit, and you'll see it because it'll say crit right there, giving her extra damage and a little bit of knockback, and you actually knock them up with you. So that obviously goes into if you hit your move, but if you hit the move, it will crit. The only moves that I believe are able to, there's two moves I know that can crit automatically, and that is Amaterasu's Sunseeker Dash and then Thor's Mjolnir Attunement. Those two automatically crit if you hit them in their sweet spot, but there is a perk or talent or blessing or whatever you want to call it that Hercules has that allows his boulder to crit whenever you hit an enemy in the air. So not everybody's going to have a crit, but there are a couple of characters that do have crits depending on, you know, what they do or how they use it. Moving on to crowd control. Crowd control, or CC, is literally a status effect. It can be soft crowd control like a slow, it can be heavy crowd control like a stun, but all of these are crowd control effects. As you can see right here, there's a fear. Fear basically forcing the player to walk in a random direction away from whoever caused it. If you guys don't know, Izanami's ult is a fear. Then you go to a state where your movement speed is impaired, so basically you move slower. A stun is where you're basically unable to do anything, and then a toss-up is basically whenever you get knocked up. Whenever you're knocked up in the air, you're kind of just stationary in the air, you can't do anything. As I said originally, Izanami does have a fear on her ult. Once her ult hit, it will cause enemies to walk away. Now, obviously, they're not moving too far because this is like their default area, so they're like standing there. But if you were to hit an actual person with her ult, they would just immediately start walking away slowly. If you look at someone like Thor's Q, whenever he lands, has a stun, and the stun will cause them to be able to do nothing. Then if you look at a character like Arthur's, I want to say E ability has a slow, causing the enemy to basically move slower than they usually would if they weren't slowed. So there's a bunch of different type of, you know, CC or crowd controls in the game, and these are just to name a few. Moving on to damage reduction. Damage reduction is basically when you're in a state that you take reduced damage. So let's say someone hit me and I take 20% damage. Well, if I have damage reduction, I'll take like 11% damage. It's reducing the damage that I take. One of the only characters that has this in their kit automatically is Athena. Whenever she jumps and comes down, she gets damage reduction, as you guys can see right here. Now, there are characters like Hercules who can give himself damage reduction in his traits or talents, but for the most part, Athena is one of the only characters that can just innately give herself damage reduction. Next is Dodge, which is just a move that provides immunity frames and allows you to move. Now, everybody in the game has a dodge, and that dodge will give you iframes or invincibility frames, immunity, whatever you want to call it. But pretty much what that does is it allows you to not take damage that you would have if you did not dodge. The next thing I want to talk about is Endlag. Endlag is basically the time it takes for you to do something else after you've done a move. As you guys can see right here, if I do a heavy, it takes me a little bit before I can do anything else. Or as you guys can see, it takes me a while before I can, move around or whatever the case may be. Right now I'm trying to dash, but it takes me a little bit before I can do that. Same with aerials. It takes you a bit before you can do it. I'm pressing my dash as soon as possible, but as you guys can see, I can't do it for quite a bit of time. So whenever you miss a move, you will have Endlag on that move. And what that allows other people to do is to punish you for missing your move or ability or whatever it is. The next one is heal, and basically what that does is it heals your character, or in a sense reduces your percentage, because the more damage you take, the higher your percentage, and when you heal, your percentage goes down. Now, one of the only characters that has this so far is Thanatos. If you look at him, he has it on his ult, which you can't see it right now because I'm at 0%, but if you look at his ult, whenever he ults, he will heal, and you can see that plus sign right there, and it will heal him. And then whenever he uses his E ability, he will also heal. So he will heal from his E ability and his ultimate ability. Now right now, Thanatos is one of the only characters that can heal in the game. Next up is Hitbox, and I kind of already covered this, but it was basically the area which an attack is registered. So if I swing my sword, the area that the sword is swung would be the hitbox. Meaning if you're in any of that area, you will get hit. Looking at Amaterasu's ult, you'll see that her hitbox is that like rectangle area. So anyone in that rectangle area will get hit because that is her hitbox. As you guys see, I just hit 2 people. Immunity is a state of complete immunity to damage, crowd control, knockback, etc. So basically, whenever you're immune, you cannot take any damage, knockback, or anything for the duration. If you guys don't know what immunity looks like, whenever Hercules ults, you'll see his body lights up. Matter of fact, when most people ult, their body lights up, and in doing so, they are immune to knockback, damage, or anything else. As you see, his body is lit up, and that means that he is CC immune, or damage immune in general. Interrupt is a state when you are hit during casting an ability and it cancels its activation. So if you guys have been playing the game, there are times wherever you try to pop your ult, right? But you get hit with like a heavy attack or an ability or whatever, and it stops you from ulting. That is what an interruption is. If you're interrupted early in the ability, it refunds the entire cooldown. And if you are interrupted in between casting and hitbox activation, you'll be refunded half the cooldown. So keep this in mind whenever you're trying to use abilities or you're trying to use your ultimates, because if you try to press it and you get hit early, you'll keep the cooldown so you can do it again. But if you do get interrupted after you start it, it will not give you your full cooldown. Invisibility is a state where you are no longer visible to any other players. Now, obviously, this excludes your teammates because your teammates need to see you to be able to coordinate and everything like that. But whenever you are invisible, the enemy cannot see you. One of the only characters that has invisibility is Izanami. Whenever she jumps and she comes down, she will be invisible, so the enemies cannot see her. The next one is Knockback, and that's basically whenever you get knocked back. It's kind of self-explanatory, but there are things to note. Some moves have light knockback and some moves have heavy knockback. Light knockback being you get knocked back a little bit, heavy knockback being you get knocked back a lot. You can obviously tell which moves are light and heavy because let's say someone's at a super high percent. If you guys hit them with a light knockback move, they will not die. As you guys see, she didn't go that far. Now, if you hit her with a heavy knockback move, she will go flying. So you can tell which moves are light and not heavy knockback. Also, if you guys don't know, you can look at the move sets of the characters and it'll also tell you which ones are. But if you played the game enough, you'll know which moves are light and heavy knockback. The next one is Knockback Resist, and this is basically a state where you have reduced knockback to yourself. So let's say you're at a really high percent, but you have Knockback Resist. Even if they hit you with a heavy knockback move, you're not going to get knocked back that much because you have Knockback Resist. The next one I want to talk about is Super Armor, and this is basically whenever you can be hit, you can take damage, but you will not receive any knockback. You can also be stunned, so keep that in mind. Characters like Ymir have Super Armor when he uses his E ability. As you guys can see right here, he has Super Armor. Now this will stop him from getting knocked back by light, heavy attacks, or abilities, but if you get hit by an ultimate, you will get knocked back still. So ultimates are excluded from Super Armor, and the environment as well. The last thing I want to talk about is vulnerability. Vulnerability is basically how much damage you've taken and how far you will be knocked back because you have taken that damage. So long story short, it's the percentage. As you guys see right now, I'm at 0%, but if you look at these characters, this is at 0, she's at 20, she's at 40, 65. This is all their vulnerability, and what that means is they will get knocked back a little bit, or they will get knocked back a lot, depending on where their vulnerability is at. So anyways, that is all the information on everything. I hope I was able to clear that up for some of you guys, because I know a lot of people didn't really know what crits were and a couple of other things. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video. Be sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, comment down below, tell me what you guys think in the comment section about that being said. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.